Hey, it's Fourth Playboy.
And my Playboys Bunny.
Welcome to our podcast where we discuss pickup, game, relationships, and...
Sex.
Today's topic is college versus workplace dating.
Yeah, it's a good question. And I was asked, and I was actually a little bit surprised that we hadn't covered it already. Because it is a big thing. People, I think guys in particular, go from college where they're in a frat or they're involved and they're surrounded by tons of girls all day, every day, to workplace where maybe they're like in a cubicle or out in the field or all kinds of, it's a whole different ball game once you kind of grow up.
Oh, for sure.
It's a real drag.
Especially depending on what you do.
Yeah.
You know.
But truly, I think that most people, I think we all grow up thinking that we're going to be surrounded by people and like a school scenario our whole lives. But really, once we get into the workforce, it's not as sexy as we thought it was going to be.
This is what I try to convey to people. And sometimes you don't realize it because you're too close to it or you went through it and you had a boyfriend or girlfriend.
Yeah.
There is no better environment for meeting people you can have sex with.
Yeah.
Than a college campus.
Oh,
when you're
agreed.
in college. When you're in college. Everybody is close in age. Everybody's kind of looking, we're using the universal everybody.
Yeah,
most are open to experimentation, are open to meeting each other. Even the people that you would normally, like really hot women, really hot guys that would normally be in a relationship, and the girls will be off the market within years.
Yeah.
You know, they're single sometimes for a little window. You know, I mean,
sure.
Opportunities present themselves in college, and you have free time.
Yes.
You know, I mean, and you're in an isolated, walkable area. You guys can get privacy, and you're young and you have energy.
Yeah.
All these things lead to lots of sex.
Yeah.
I mean, they can. Yeah, if you want to. So there's no better environment for any type of sex casual or meeting the love of your life, or
right,
getting your MRS degree, than a college campus. Then immediately you're going into a different environment. And when we talk about job sex or like workplace, there's different levels and there's different workplaces.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't been in the corporate world for at least 15 years, but the feedback I get from the guys that are frank with us, and they'll talk to me and Buddy, they'll be like, you don't have any idea how bad it is.
Yeah.
Like, it's extremely restrictive.
Yeah.
Like, you can get into trouble for the slightest,
oh my gosh,
misspoken word or glance or problems,
nightmare.
As opposed to if you go in, you're running bars.
Yeah.
Or, you're a liquor distributor. I mean, there's different levels to that. And like, we work in the gym industry.
Sure.
There's not a lot of HR. It's more flexible.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
We always say there's no HR department in here, and I love one of my favorite phrases when I'm like giving people compliments is I'm an equal opportunity sexual harasser.
Yeah. You do. I mean, you're so used to telling your clients, male or you look great today.
Yeah.
You look fantastic. You're moving so well.
Your ass looks terrific.
Yeah.
You're really slimming down. You're really tightening up.
It would be a whole different thing if you're walking into a conference room and, your boss says, you look great today. I mean, there's your ass looks great.
Your ass is smoking.
Yeah. I mean, that's the guy's side. I say, when you come out of college, you just have to realize that you've just left the best environment.
Yeah.
To get laid that you'll ever be in. Anything else is going to be a little bit more restricted. And in the workplaces, you have a mix of married people, people with serious relationships. You don't know what their status is. And some people, like in work, they don't want to fraternize.
Make friends.
No, they don't. They're not there for friendship. I mean,
yeah.
And I've always been, wherever I was, I like my workplace to be somewhat of, more, we party in the evening and on the weekends together. You know what I mean? Every job I've ever had was more like that.
Yeah.
what have you experienced? What do you see it from
Well,
a female perspective?
I do find it interesting that now corporate is so HR run, and I think on top of what you said about just everything being kind of almost offensive to people, or having to be so cautious about not offending people, you also have a whole other echelon of the quality of humans that you're interacting with, and they're not that good. You're dealing with a lot of the general public, and it's not healthy. It's not good for your libido. It's not, like nothing about it is appealing to begin with. And then, next thing you know, you've got a land whale, suggesting that you were hitting on them. So I think there's a lot of landmines in the corporate work environment. Now, when I was in corporate, it's been I guess it's been about 18 years since I've been in corporate. But I was also on the marketing side of a corporate environment. And so we were literally paid to mix, mingle, drink, eat, be merry, and be the life of the party. So, I didn't run into any problems at all as a female, but I also am me. So I'm also, not going to be offended if I get a compliment by a client or by a coworker, things like that. So I think a lot has to deal with the types of women that you encounter in your particular workplace.
And I would say this, from anything that involves travel,
Yeah.
Any business travel or guys that are out on the road, anyone that is involved where you're never home, there's a lot of hooking up going on.
Oh,
Make
yeah.
no mistake what's on the surface. And I'm going to say this. I think if you're a salesman, if you're in marketing, you're in PR, you're in advertising, where your personality has to be bigger than life.
Yes.
People give you more leeway.
Yeah, I agree.
As opposed to if you are married with 4 kids and your persona is a straight arrow man, married man.
Yeah.
With the family life, but you're also fucking around. They're not going to be as forgiving.
I agree.
The classic example is like when what is the Tiger Woods?
Yeah.
He was with Cadillac, he was with Rolex, but his presentation was a staid, straight-laced, married, with kids. When he was actually family man, when his real lifestyle was strippers and models and fucking around on his wife, which is fine if you're upfront about it. You know what I mean? If that's kind of like how you are, people would have been accepting of it. He would have. I still think he would have had the same amount of
fans and followers. He probably would have still been married too.
And sponsors. But he hid that stuff. So I think if your persona is of a Playboy or more relaxed, but you're a producer, you get away with more.
Yeah. Agreed completely.
That's how I see it. I mean, if you're talking about how do you make it work, this is who you are. And people generally don't fuck with them.
Right.
Agreed. It's one of those things like, oh yeah, everybody knows that.
Yeah.
As opposed to if people feel betrayed.
Well, at the same time that was going on, wasn't John Daly still pretty hot? And he's fat, and he's an alcoholic, and he clearly doesn't take care of himself, and he was like smoking out on the golf course. And people were like, oh my God, what has happened to golf? But at the same time, he was interesting to watch. He was good. I mean, I think he comes and goes a lot more, but they just know that's him.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a happy, there's a balance in there that Tiger Woods could have certainly achieved without fucking his career over.
I think if you're going to be in the corporate world and you're going to be a player or play around or run around, if you're somewhat upfront about it and you're charismatic, and your game is just part of your life, it's easier to do than if you're living a double life.
Yeah.
That's my take on it,
But, this question that I got in the DMs that kind of spurred this conversation on, it may not have even been referring to someone who wants to be a player in the corporate world. So I think that it can also be tricky to navigate if you're truly looking for someone to date, whether you're running a rotation or whatnot. Just dating in the corporate or in the adult world versus dating in college can be tricky.
My suggestion is, if you are a beginner or intermediate and you're not good at reading people, I'd keep it out of the workplace.
I agree completely. Very seldom does that actually end well.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely meet people, you can definitely hook up, but the problem is most people you meet, hook up with, it doesn't last.
Yeah.
And now you're stuck. And that's where anytime I've ever read anything or met somebody or talked to somebody about having a workplace romance, everything's fine until they have to inevitably break up, which happens. It's normal. And that's where the real tension comes in. They don't know how to navigate that. So
not at all. So it gets tricky. So I would suggest, if you're in business, if you're all grown up and past college and you're in business trying to navigate dating, even if you're surrounded by girls who, would be interesting to you, I suggest steering clear of them, and getting online dating, getting, out in more social environments. But I suggest not shitting where you eat, because it very rarely ends well.
In worst case scenario, if a girl is interested in you, she's going to be if she's motivated enough, she's going to let you know. I think the one or two, where people meet and they go, I've never dated anybody in the workforce.
Right.
People will overcome barriers to get together. Does that make sense? I mean,
yeah.
That's where you don't have to worry about it too much. She'll throw it in front of you, stop the car, just, it'll be obvious and you will have to weigh the risks.
Right.
But I would never tell anybody, don't take a risk. You have to calibrate your risk.
And I do think that oftentimes, and this is kind of way off in left field, but I would say oftentimes a couple that meets in the workplace, falls in love, actually wants to create a life together, I think oftentimes she will say, I'm going to get another job.
That's true.
I'm going to change jobs.
Yeah.
Or the lower on the echelon, let's say, the lower on the pyramid kind of automatically goes, to keep things from going south for us professionally, I'm going to move over to this company, even if it's in the same field.
Yeah, you see this type of conflict mostly in the military, where the rank structures are very and there is truly, it's against the law by military law to fraternize. Those decisions are made behind closed doors.
Yeah.
That way they don't become a problem.
But we do have corporate friends who started dating in the workplace and tried to keep it a secret, and finally one of them has to leave.
Yeah.
Unless it's a family business where he's the one in charge and it's just she becomes part of the family. Yeah. One of them has to inevitably leave.
Yeah.
This has gone all over the place. But there is such a difference in dating once you're out of college, once you're out of those college years, that's never replicated again.
No. You have to really enjoy what you have.
Yeah.
That's good.
I mean, the best suggestion is, if you're looking to date or have a serious girlfriend, or with the idea that you'll marry, find her when you're young. Find her in college, because the options are not endless once you're out, and it takes a lot more trouble once you're out. So there's a lot to navigate there. But hopefully this has given you at least some ideas, some help, a little bit of clarity, possibly.
A foundation to work off of.
Yeah. And a lot depends on your professional field
And desires.
and environment.
Yeah.
So, if you like this podcast, please like, subscribe, share with your friends. We appreciate you listening and enjoying all of the content that we produce. If you would like any of our courses or books that we've referenced in the past or here that you don't already have, feel free to check that in the description. We want you to win. Bye!